We start this hour in the US and the presence of ICE agents in Minneapolis following the killing of 2 protesters by federal agents this month. President Trump is under growing pressure, including from some of his Republican allies. And so he's indicated that he's prepared to lower tensions, saying that his administration is going to, in his words, de-escalate a little bit in Minnesota. The operation will now be overseen by Tom Homan, President Trump's border czar, replacing the hawkish Greg Bovino, who is now expected to leave the city, along with some of the 3,000 immigration agents deployed there after widespread criticism. Nevertheless, President Trump says that Alex Pretti, the nurse who was recently killed by ICE, should not have been carrying a firearm, even though it was lawful. 2 of Mr. Trump's predecessors, Joe Biden and Barack Obama, have lambasted the immigration crackdown, with Mr. Biden saying it betrayed America's most basic values. Meanwhile, pressure is growing for the Homeland Security Secretary, Kristi Noem, to step down. Soon after the killing of Alex Pretti, she labeled him a domestic terrorist. Senior Democrats have threatened to impeach her if President Trump doesn't fire her. And some Republicans said she was making the president look bad and called for a probe.
It's a weapon.
Do you believe that Alex Pretti's death was justified?
Well, you know, we're doing a big investigation. I want to see the investigation. I'm going to be watching over it. I want a very honorable and honest investigation. I have to see it myself.
Is Kristi Noem going to step down?
No.
Mr. President.
Well, I'm looking at that whole situation. I love everybody. I love all of our people. I love his family. And it's a very sad situation.
Do you think he was acting as an assassin in Minneapolis?
Who is that?
Mr. Pretti, your deputy chief of staff
No,
said
not
that.
isn't it? No. With that being said, you know, you can't have guns. You can't walk in with guns. You just can't. And you can't, listen, you can't walk in with guns. You can't do that. But it's a very unfortunate incident. Yeah.
What ICE is doing is lawless disorder. What ICE is doing is state-sanctioned thuggery, and it must be stopped. ICE must leave Minnesota today, not tomorrow, not next week, but today. There are reports that the president is thinking about a reduction in force. A reduction isn't good enough. President Trump should act now to completely withdraw ICE and immediately turn down the temperature. It is bone-chilling that in the aftermath of the killings in Minneapolis, some of the Trump administration's top officials have chosen to blatantly lie to the American people like full-fledged authoritarians. Stephen Miller raced to Twitter to call Alex Pretti a would-be assassin who tried to murder federal law enforcement. If you'd watched the videos of the killing, you'd know this is an outlandish and shocking and totally dishonest, despicable thing to say. Meanwhile, Gregory Bovino, Donald Trump's top Border Patrol officer, also claimed, without a shred of evidence, that Pretti wanted to do maximum damage and massacre law enforcement. And then, of course, there's Kristi Noem. Merely hours after Pretti's death, Noem claimed again, without so much as a morsel of evidence, that he had committed an act of domestic terrorism and wanted to perpetrate violence. You know what the reaction of these Trump officials, too many of them, seems to be when something terrible happens? To lie about it. That's their immediate reaction, not to find the truth, not to express any sympathy to those who are dead, but to lie, lie, lie.
That's Charles Schumer, who's the Senate's Democratic leader, and before him, of course, Donald Trump. We'll have more on that in a moment. But staying in America, the Democratic Congresswoman Ilhan Omar has been attacked by a man whilst delivering a speech at a town hall event she was hosting in Minneapolis. Police say the man used a syringe to spray an unknown liquid onto her. Miss Omar was apparently unharmed, and the man has been arrested. As he was being taken away, he accused her of pitting Minnesotans against each other. After the incident, Ms. Omar continued with her speech, which was focused on the immigration enforcement efforts that are taking place in Minneapolis. In 2019, Ms. Omar became the first Somali American, the first African woman American, and one of the first 2 Muslim American women to serve in the U.S. Congress. Earlier this month, President Trump wrote on Truth Social that Ms. Omar should be in jail, or even a worse punishment, sent back to Somalia, considered one of the absolutely worst countries in the world, and she can help to make Somalia great again.
I'm here outside the building where Representative Ilhan Omar was sprayed with an unknown substance while conducting a town hall in the city of Minneapolis. The town hall was focused on immigration enforcement in the city and hearing community concerns about that. The spraying happened very quickly and at close range. The person was immediately tackled to the ground by security and led out of the room. Omar insisted on continuing the town hall despite what happened. The room did have a lingering vinegar smell, but it's unclear what the substance was. As far as security goes in the building, there were some bag checks at the door and there was law enforcement posted outside, but there wasn't really any evidence to indicate that there was any sort of heightened security threat.
Well, for more on both those stories, I'm joined now on the line from Vermont by Arise Special Correspondent James Blue. As always, good to see you, James. So let's start with the pressure that is mounting on President Trump. He's now saying that his administration is going to de-escalate a little bit in Minneapolis. Is that giving people in the city some optimism that the right course of action may now be taken? Could this be an inflection point, or will the proof be in the pudding?
Yeah, Charles, it's great to be with you this evening. I think it's very clear that the Trump administration has really blinked, and they are reevaluating the efforts in Minnesota, the efforts around the country as they try to continue the roundup of people who are here illegally. I think the real sort of killing of the ICU nurse, Mr. Hewitt, really kind of touched a nerve, and especially because it was a moment where our eyes were seeing with the video what happened, and the Trump administration was deciding and sort of commenting on very different things. And so a number of things have happened. There's a conversation that started with both the governor and the mayor. The official who was leading that effort in Minnesota has been recalled, and the president sent his sort of lead chief person, the head of the Border Security Enforcement, to Minneapolis to sort of oversee things. I think the tactics will change, but certainly the goal of removing people remains the same.
So would it be fair to say that the protests have been growing against a crackdown that appears to have gone far beyond any kind of smart or legitimate immigration enforcement operation?
Yeah, the protests, and I think one of the things that has really emerged over the past few days are the people who are out there saying they're not necessarily protesting, they're just trying to sort of show the rest of the world what's happening, and they're trying to stand up for the people who are being hauled off by the Border Patrol and by the ICE agents. It's very clear that all of the video footage of the killing last week and the killing this week has really sort of shown people exactly what the US law enforcement officials are doing in their name. And because of that, there's really been a real tide of its turn, not only within the public. President Trump's poll numbers are down, especially on this issue, but also with Republican lawmakers who in the past have been unwilling to say anything, unwilling to stand up to him. But these two incidents, these two killings, certainly have created the movement for President Trump and his officials to recalibrate and to change tactics. They have blinked.
And an example of that deepening tension appears to be an attack on the Somali-American Democratic Congresswoman Ilhan Omar while she was echoing calls for the Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem to be removed. And Miss Omar has frequently come under political attack by President Trump, hasn't she, who's called her garbage during remarks targeting Somali immigrants.
Yeah, Charles, this is a real example of how political rhetoric can come into and turn into political violence. Last night during the town hall meeting, someone just came up and sort of took a spray bottle and sprayed Congressman Ilhan Omar. We don't know exactly what it was. It was foul smelling and it did not seem to injure her, but it is an indicator of what is happening when people take things into their own hands. And it's that type of rhetoric that people are very worried about. And I think, the fact we haven't heard many reports about any long-term effects, but it is a consequence, I believe, and many people do believe, of the rhetoric from the president.
So, James, is the solution then, in your assessment, simply to remove those ICE agents from Minneapolis? Because President Trump would presumably say that he was elected in part on a mandate to deal with the problems of immigration, and that is how he's proceeding to deal with it, though his critics would say that he was elected to better secure the U.S. southern border, which he has done effectively, but interior enforcement and mass deportation is a different question altogether.
Yeah, it is a different question. And I think what President Trump's going to do is really sort of say they have secured the border. They now need to do the additional work of bringing people who are here illegally, getting them out of the country. I think what is going to happen is that they are going to really try to recalibrate. They're going to try to find a softer, more gentler way to do it. They're going to try to coordinate with the local authorities. They've already had conversations with the mayor, with the governor, and I think you will see a change. And I think the fact that over the course of the last 2 weeks we've had 2 people killed, and we've had President Trump decide he needs to do something different, that is an indicator that things are likely to change in Minnesota. This is a really tense moment, and everyone's hoping for a change. And Charles, unfortunately, I'm going to have to sign off because I'm going to get out of here and head to Washington, where I'll be tomorrow.
Okay, well, you've done a good job so far. We would obviously like to keep you a bit longer, but we understand the need for you to go and catch your flight. Thank you very much indeed. James Blue is Arise special correspondent. He was talking to me on the line there from Vermont. And just a couple of things, notes to make before we sort of take a break. Questions are being raised about whether the solution is just to remove ICE agents. We heard James address that just a minute ago, but we also understand that ICE officials have adopted a quota that their agents have to make 3,000 arrests a day, and there simply aren't enough serious criminal violators, the so-called worst of the worst, to satisfy that quota. And that has put the pressure on ICE to go in and do these mass deportations and pick up many people who have not committed any crimes but have been in the country illegally, which, by the way, is a civil, not a criminal offense. And we also heard from former President Joe Biden saying this crackdown has betrayed American values. And I would have wanted to ask James whether that is the way American people see this, or whether there's still plenty of people in America who support President Trump's vision to remove illegal immigrants. But then on the back of that, we understand that the latest opinion polling, to which Donald Trump is highly attuned, especially when it comes to what his base is feeling and thinking, shows that he's been losing ground quite significantly on the issue of his handling of immigration. So the Republican base apparently uncomfortable with the kind of images of highly aggressive tactics that are coming out of Minnesota.